about hydrogen, world regions like Africa, Australia, South America maybe come up and are quite recently in the news. That is because there is more sunshine and probably also a bit more wind than in Central Europe. That equals cheap energy prices, equals cheap hydrogen prices, and equals the opportunity to decarbonize a lot of fossil industries. But then all of that hydrogen still has to be transported um, to the industrial sites. They are not necessarily next to each other. So these costs on how to transport the molecule are, for the most part, yet to be calculated. And they will potentially be quite high. I mean, given the distances, that seems quite logical. But then why do we look so far away for hydrogen? Um, there is one country in Europe that claims to be able to support green hydrogen at the best world market price. That country, I mean, you know that because you registered for today's webinar. That country is Finland. And you all being here shows how interesting, how important the sourcing of hydrogen is to vast majority of the energy industry. So thank you for being with us today and welcome to this eWorld community session. My name is Anne. I'm heading the eWorld conference team, and I'm very glad that you're with us today. So I am very much looking forward to discovering a bit more about the Finnish hydrogen ecosystem. But before we get started and before I introduce our two guests, let's dive in with a few technical things. That's just two of them. Probably know that if you're here often. So first of all, if you have any questions during the two presentations that will follow, please use the chat or the Q&A button. I will keep an eye on both, and we have enough time to answer all of your questions afterwards. And secondly, maybe you also heard that when entering, this session is recorded, so we will provide you with the video afterwards. Now, what can you expect from the next about an hour? So luckily, as I said, I have two guests with me today. They are both very familiar with the Finnish hydrogen ecosystem and also cross-border potentials of corporations and partnerships around that molecule. So first of all, Markku Janhonen is here. He is the Vice President of Public Affairs at Finland's transmission system operator, Gasgrid. And in addition, he is also a member of the steering committee of the Hydrogen Cluster Finland. So welcome, Markku. Hi.
Thank you.
But first, we dive on in with another presentation from your colleague, Jan. Jan Feller is since 2015 with the German Chamber of Commerce in Finland, and since 2019, he is the managing director there. So welcome, Jan.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Jan, you're part of the team who prepares a hydrogen partnership between Germany and Finland. And you will tell us a bit more about that shortly, but maybe just as a starting question, I mean, chambers of commerce, they deal with, or you deal with a lot of areas of economy. Why have you decided hydrogen is a thing that I want to focus on?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I mean, hydrogen is one of the, as a German Chamber of Commerce in Finland, like all AHKs, we try to work in both directions. So we want to promote exports to Germany, German exports to Finland. And hydrogen is one area which perfectly matches that because it's a win-win situation if we are able to build a hydrogen economy between Finland and Germany. Germany, as we will see, dearly needs hydrogen, green hydrogen. Finland will be able to produce that in sufficient amounts at competitive prices. So this is one of the cases where you don't have to think about whose advantage it is if you push the exports of one country. It's actually a win-win situation.
Okay, I see. So I'm very interested to learn more about this sort of cooperations and what you have prepared for maybe the next month, years to be published. And then afterwards, Marco will give us a bit more information how the Finnish hydrogen cluster came to be. So, floor's yours. I'm looking
Thank you very
forward to your
much.
presentation.
I'm sharing the slides. I hope you can see them.
Yes, looks good.
So everything actually started with Finland coming out a couple of years back, stating, we have the possibility to produce 10% of all EU green hydrogen by 2030, and that's a goal the country has set. And in the last 2 years, we have had numerous delegations from Germany, business and political delegations. And whenever they hear about the hydrogen potential here, the question was, why aren't we aware of this in Germany? We are running around in countries which are great countries and have a potential of hydrogen production, but like Oman and even Australia and South Africa and so on. And here we have an EU and NATO member country with a stable political system. One could say it's even more stable than in Germany right now, and that can actually provide green hydrogen to the German economy. So that's how we got involved. And what I wanted to just quickly in 10-15 minutes show to you the proof of why is it competitive, and then what's planned. So and Marco will then go even more into detail. Fact is that Finnish electricity prices in 22 and 23, and we're just waiting for the 24 numbers, were the EU's second lowest energy prices. You can see Finland here on the far left-hand side, right after Sweden. You can see the EU average here in orange. So we are right now in Finland at below 6 cents per kilowatt hour average wholesale price. But even more important is actually what potential does Finland have to produce hydrogen in the long run, both for getting high value production in the country, but then also to export the excess. And on the right hand side, you can see that by 2050, predictions are that there might be about 95 terawatt hours excess electricity in Finland for hydrogen production. This is we at home, we have a spot price for electricity, and this is a screenshot of the app from last Friday, where you can see what I paid at home as a consumer for my electricity. That was 0.8 euro cent per kilowatt hours. You can see the average price over the last 7 days, which was 2.8 euro cent per kilowatt hours. The day after, it was actually 0.2 euro cent, but it's cyclical, of course. So there is no wind, prices go up, and that's one of the key challenges the Finnish energy system is working with right now. When we look at the energy mix in Finland, you can see that renewables, which is the blue curve, took over the fossil energy and peat in 2020, end of 2019 actually, and has since then been the biggest part of total Finnish energy consumption. This is consumption, even not production. But it's also fair to say that we do have nuclear energy here in Finland as well. You can see that here in the black curve below. And interestingly, you can also see in this graph how Finland became a net exporter of electricity already shortly in 23, and how the curve, which is the lowest one, is now hovering around zero. Where does Finland produce its green hydrogen, or plans to produce it? It's predominantly wind power. Wind power is a main power source for clean hydrogen. The current wind power capacity is about 8 gigawatt here in Finland. There is 72 gigawatts onshore wind capacity planned, and 70 gigawatt or 69 offshore wind capacity planned right now. There is no state-subsidized feeding tariff, so in that sense, the Finnish model is different from for example, the German model. But that also means that at some stage, when at windy days, as it is here in Finland, electricity prices even turn negative, the business case for expanding wind energy is getting also negative. That's why we see a big question at the end. Do we get this amount of wind power installed? That will happen if there is enough demand for electricity. And that's basically where hydrogen comes in, and where also Germany comes in. If you look at the Germany predicted hydrogen needs, assumptions are, or scenarios point into that there is a total energy consumption of 1,800 terawatt hours in 2030. Out of that, 7% hydrogen, which translates to 95 to 130 terawatt hours in 2030. Some experts argue, is it 2030, is it 2032? That's still an open question, but the amounts are roughly the same. And of that, Germany can only, even with the planned expansions, as it looks right now, produce half of it itself. So there is a predicted need for imported hydrogen between 45 and 90 terawatt hours per year. That prediction actually goes up. When you look at the official German hydrogen import strategy, it goes up to even above 350 terawatt hours per year in 45. That's hydrogen and derivatives. So there is a huge need, and there is a country here in the north that can actually fulfill part of that need. And there's a German study published in summer by DNV and Gascade, which actually looked at what's the theoretical potential of an export. So this is not, it's different to the Fraunhofer study, which was published later, where they looked at, does a country say, yes, we already want to export or not? This is about what's the expansion in green electricity planned, what's the industry base that needs electricity by itself, what's the assumed growth of that industry base. And the result was that Finland is actually the only country in the Baltic Sea region that has a major potential for export. So if you look at Sweden, Sweden is also going to be a hydrogen producer, but Sweden has a lot of industry and energy-heavy industry itself. So the export potential of Sweden will be lower than it's here for Finland. When you look at this potential partnership between Germany and Finland, and the governments are right now negotiating on how this cooperation could look like, and we are already, as a Chamber of Commerce, bringing German off-takers and German investors with Finnish hydrogen producers together. There is 3 projects which we are working on right now. You can already see that German companies are already actively investing in the Finnish renewables and the Finnish hydrogen ecosystem. Just 2 cases examples. We have CPC Finland and German Prime Capital, who are building a 200 megawatt methane and hydrogen plant in Kristinestad in Finland. Completion here is planned to be 2026. And we have Rengas, Finnish company Rengas and Allianz as an investor. They have various e-methane and hydrogen projects. Total capacity is around 300 megawatts, production start, depending on the project, 27, 28. Those Rengas cases are, for example, very interesting, as is a recent case announced by Helsinki-based Helen, where the excess heat of hydrogen production is actually used in district heating. So all those projects are built in places where you have a feeding point into the district heating network, which actually increases the efficiency of the hydrogen production above 90%. On top of these specific cases, also, when you only look at windcraft, German investors have been financing a significant amount of Finland's wind parks over the years. So while we in Germany have been a bit slow to actually expand our wind power, German companies have been very active here in Finland to contribute. So there is a lot of potential in Finland. There is already cases where a collaboration happens. When we look at those cases, they all start with derivatives, mainly green ammonia and e-methane, which are transportable by freighter or tanker, for example. But then, of course, the main business case, and you already mentioned about the question of price of transport, the main business case for exporting molecular hydrogen will be when we are in a situation that we are going to be able to build pipelines to transport that. And also for that, the geographical proximity between Finland and Germany is, of course, a big benefit. And Marco is the best man to tell you also more about that, how to get the stuff to Germany then. As a last slide, I wanted to pitch to the audience here, in case you are a German company looking for hydrogen, looking for hydrogen technology, developing hydrogen technology. If you are a Finnish company looking for to become part of a German-Finnish hydrogen ecosystem, we at the German-Finnish Chamber of Commerce, AHK Finland, we have a hydrogen interest group where we meet 4 to 6 meetings per year. We have a dedicated, curated monthly newsletter updating companies on the developments in both countries, both political and technological developments, expert presentations, site visits, matchmaking, and so on. So if you're interested to join that group, please get in touch with me. You can see my contact details here, and also our social media handles in case you want to follow, keep up to date on the developments in Germany and Finland. That was a quick briefing from my side.
Great. Thank you very much. I think we can dive into that with questions, if there are any in the audience afterwards. So over to you, Marco, to give us an idea of the ecosystem over in Finland.
Thank you very much. Wait. Hold on. Do you see the full, is it appropriate, Mine? Do you see the full slide? Perfect.
Yes, we do.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Marko Janhunen and coming from Gasgrid Finland, as was said. But I'm very pleased to represent also here a broader community of Finnish companies or companies based in Finland that are part of the Hydrogen Cluster Finland. Yes, my topic here would be, in a way, Finland and the Baltic Sea region as a hydrogen powerhouse in Europe. And this is something we have been very actively communicating in the past couple of years. As Jan said earlier, it's a well-kept secret, and maybe we Finns are notorious and famous for marketing skills, but this is something that we have taken very seriously, and we have really tried and started to reach out to a broad community of stakeholders with the message of the opportunities that we have at hand here. Now, being a representative of Gasgrid Finland, so we are the TSO of Finland, so responsible for the gas infrastructure in Finland, which is rather limited and used to be fully based on Russian gas. Today it is 0% Russian gas and fully operational through mainly two different sources, one being Baltic Connector that links us with the Baltic states and the European market, and the LNG tanker ship, which is on the smaller picture on the left. Gas doesn't play such a significant role in Finland as it does in many Central European countries. And today, one of the key kind of focus areas of Gasgrid Finland is definitely building the hydrogen infrastructure in Finland. We have an extremely ambitious plan to be able to take earliest 26 already the national hydrogen grid for decision making. But that obviously remains to be made then eventually with the political decisions needed for such a decision. Nevertheless, it is an opportunity that is that we are investigation and taking extremely seriously going forward step by step. I will come back to the European angle of this collaboration later. As I said, it is a pleasure also to stand here with the hydrogen cluster Finland hat on my head. I've been member of the steering committee since we started about 4 years ago, and we started with 25 companies, and today we are 110. That shows the kind of level and the kind of broadness of interest in this work, and really a lot of different types of companies. Obviously, as you can see, many German companies here as well, with their seat in Finland being the member then. Now we have as a coalition or a cluster, we've put together some of these slides, and I actually really wanted to here present more the cluster view. I will have some slides obviously on gas grid, but this is really giving you a broader view of the opportunities that we see in this country. But let's remember one thing, and I will start with that there is no single country interest here. Germany is dependent on countries that will be able to provide hydrogen in addition to the one that can be produced in Germany. Finland is dependent on the markets and investments. And I think this is much more than many other traditional industries. This really touches base across the whole value chain. And there was an interview of one of my colleagues in the cluster, and he said that this industry in Finland could become the new Nokia, and this refers to the fact that Nokia used to be a very dominant company in the Finnish economy, and obviously globally at one point completely dominated the telephone handset business. And actually the beauty of the hydrogen industry or hydrogen economy opportunity lies in the fact that nobody can become really that big. It's really a much more the whole kind of value chain that will certainly be able to be very big and create a lot of value to different countries. But I don't believe that one single company can actually become a dominant in that sense. We will see very different types of collaboration in this business. And this is also, I think, a good example how we are sitting here in a not the most typical kind of setup of this eWorld Energy session today. Now, why Finland does have some clear advantages in this business is, of course, as was already mentioned, clean electricity, fresh water, and then the biogenic CO2 especially. Having the ability then to touch upon industrial processes, fuels, fertilizers, chemicals, enabling then flexibility in the electricity market as well. Now, the business case can be summarized. This is one view of it, and this is a rather recent study that we have put together with outside consultants. I think there are two issues that are kind of changing all the time. One is, what is the view of demand and supply in 2030? And 2030 is actually quite soon. These figures are less than what Jan showed in his slide for the obvious reason that here we are looking at actually kind of regulatory minimum level of demand. This means that this is the kind of regulated demand, and we are certain that there will be in the steel industry or others a kind of non-regulated demand, but this refers really to the various types of mandates that have been put in place as part of the Green Deal legislation, which is now being transposed or implemented into national legislation. And while the 160 terawatt hours of demand by 2030 is less than in some other, this is certainly a significant amount of demand that needs to be put in place in a relatively short time by 2030. It is quite clear, though, however, that the true growth will come in the 2030s, and then we are talking about significant amounts. And I think the question is, how do we kind of build and maintain the momentum until the 2030s or the next round of this business? It was also said that that Finland possesses significant opportunities. As part of this Northern Hydrogen Project market analysis that we have at Gasgrid done over the past couple of months, it is clear that there are two regions in Europe that have a clear opportunity side here with regard to green hydrogen, especially, so RFNBOs. And this is the Nordics and the Iberian Peninsula. This is actually great news. I'm really pleased for every successful project and investment done in Spain or Portugal, and I think it's good news. It's good news also that Spain and Portugal are looking at how to transport their products into Germany or Central Europe to the kind of demand area where you can see that it is clearly Germany and the Benelux countries that will have the largest demand for these products. And as I said, it is positive for the industry, it's positive for Finland and Sweden and the rest of the Baltic Sea region that we have different areas being able to produce these products, because then it also becomes more politically relevant long term, which will enable us to have more regulatory certainty, which will enable companies to invest more. So it's in a kind of a positive cycle to support the hydrogen economy investments. Why then maybe four arguments that are kind of supportive to the business case of investments in Finland. One being maybe the starting point being that the previous government by Sanna Marin, and which is being continued, maybe not as ideologically confirmed, but still it is being followed, that Finland has pledged to be carbon neutral by 2035. Now, this is when it comes to the energy generation sector, not will be done. Maybe there are some issues related to kind of carbon sinks that are stirring a lot of discussion at the moment, which may make this a little bit more complicated. But nevertheless, there is a good track record. We are moving towards this target. And obviously, this is something that is incentivizing and promoting clean and green investments in the country. The other three elements that I will quickly go through here are the clean resources, connecting the critical industries, and stability and security. Now, this is one of the slides illustrating the opportunity of wind power and solar power investments in Finland. We have seen significant increase actually in solar power, and despite the fact that a month ago it was not so bright up here, it is the average solar power conditions are similar to northern Germany due to the long hours in the summer. So there is really the number one reason is that we can add increased renewable electricity to the mix. And here you see a similar slide, a little bit to what was shown by Jan. Last year we had the second cheapest electricity, and obviously this is a clear benefit. 94% of electricity was produced CO2 neutrally, and 52% with renewable resources. Renewables increasing constantly. And this is the kind of basic case for investments, and of course the current cheap electricity prices are not exactly promoting new investments. Therefore, we need new demand, and as there is limited, then the scope of kind of electrifying further Finnish industry will come to a certain saturation point at one point. Therefore, we need new industries, hydrogen derivatives, and hydrogen being one key opportunity in this business then. The second reason, or the second, I would say, enabler for growth of this sector in Finland links to the grids. They are in good condition. They certainly face certain challenges like everywhere, but in general, the Finnish electricity grid network has been able to and will be able to absorb significant amounts of investments, still more in the green electricity, renewable electricity industry. But this is also where we are heavily engaged as a gas grid, because eventually most of the new wind power capacity is located in the north. Much of the new demand and the current demand is in the south. There is a certain amount of there are certain limitations to how much you can build electricity grids from north to south, and one hydrogen pipeline will be able to actually cover the capacity of roughly 10 voltage lines, and therefore creating or easing the situation considerably when that is then operational. Finland also has this uniform price area, which makes it at least very transparent for industry, that it is the same price all over the country, and that will remain, in my opinion, that way also in the future. Now, the third or fourth element is probably one of the kind of most important differentiators, and this is biogenic CO2. We have significant forest industry assets in Finland, and these produce, as part of their producing various types of products for consumers, whether it is paper or packaging or pulp or timber, there is then significant amounts of biogenic CO2. In total, it's 28 million tons, and this probably, now I don't have the calculation on top of my head, but this would cover a significant amount of, if you would convert that into, for example, e-fuels, that would certainly cover a significant amount of the demand in general in Europe. Obviously, not all of it will be converted, but this is something very much a question for the forest industry, and also local kind of city energy electricity companies that are still using biomass for heat and power. They are considering what are the best opportunities in using this biogenic CO2. What is the value of my biogenic CO2? How shall it be kind of, what is the regulation related to this? There's quite a few open questions, but nevertheless, having access to the cost competitive electricity, being able to transmit that electricity in the grids, and then having access also in the coastline, but elsewhere, for this biogenic CO2 creates a huge potential for power to X fuels, to eSAF, for example, among others. And this is, for me, one of the most exciting kind of aspects of this potential. How will this actually then be materialized? What will we see in 5 to 10 years' time as investments? How will we use the airplanes? Will they be using eSAF, and where is that produced? And what is the cost competitiveness then of this production in Europe versus other areas in the world? But this is certainly of interest. Maybe there one more aspect which is positive to Finland is regulation, and especially current regulation, because of the because of the CO2 neutral electricity production in Finland, we don't need to follow, for example, the additionality criteria, which is mandatory in Germany for investments in RFNBOs, which makes actually a huge difference, which obviously has been questioned by German government, by Olaf Scholz and Dr. Habeck in their letters to Brussels, but we'll come back to that in a second. Now, this is from a couple of years back, 21, some of these figures. I would not trust these numbers, or let me put it this way, I can guarantee you that they are wrong. But how wrong they are, I think they are illustrative. I think they give you a signal that yes, the Nordics can be cost competitive in this game. I think we've seen a lot of changes since this was made in the cost of capital in a number of issues, but nevertheless, we've locked in this at one point and trust that when this was made, it was roughly right. How much these are moving, I'm not going to take position at this stage. Now, finally, yes, we see a lot of projects. This is one picture of roughly, we have roughly 40 hydrogen projects currently, and here you can see where they are located. The first investments have started up in Harjavalta, where we have German Sunfire electrolyzer technology. They started up just before Christmas or around Christmas and New Year, 20 megawatt electrolyzer. They have other projects in the pipeline, and I will be going to Nordic Hydrogen Summit in Tampere this week, Wednesday and Thursday, and I have heard that there might be some further announcements of projects also in the fair, in the summit, where we are pleased to see also a lot of German interest and a lot of German companies coming to Tampere for this event. Now, as I said, the challenge is, of course, for Finland, that we're a small country, 5.5 million people, a limited market, and we need collaboration with other countries. We need transport infrastructure, and we need other types of collaboration. And we have currently 3 important projects in the Baltic Sea region, and I do see that the Baltic Sea region is really trying to raise profile, trying to raise interest, and each of these countries have a little bit different interest when it comes to hydrogen industry. They might be at quite different phase in their kind of eagerness in this industry, but nevertheless, everybody is willing to collaborate. We have a project here let's start with the north. So Gasgrid and Nordion, the Swedish TSO, are collaborating on a Nordic hydrogen route, which would combine the northernmost parts of Finland and Sweden with a lot of industrial activity there, with a lot of potential really to create something extraordinary, and then eventually, of course, linking this further with south. We have the Baltic Sea hydrogen collector, which is the sea route from Finland, Sweden to Germany, and this would be an underwater route with Gasgrid, Nordion, and currently Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners as partners in this. And then we have the third project, which would link Finland and Estonia, and then the Baltic states, Poland and Germany. Now, it's a lot of projects, it's a lot of funding, investments, but it's also a fact that we want to see promote this in a way, at least until now, simultaneously push them forward, because I think one thing is for certain, that there's a lot of uncertainties and we don't know what will happen with one or the other. And I think that creates much more opportunities that we can kind of compare the projects. They are not costing millions yet. So we can promote them until a certain point of time quite well, because that's also how we certainly learn the most here. Now, just as I'm working in public affairs, I of course need to have a final word here, final slide with some words on the policy, and happy to engage in discussion after this. But I think what do I call for, and if you know Ursula von der Leyen calls me tomorrow night, I would say, and ask me what is most important, and I think it is really continuity and commitment. We've set high kind of expectations for the hydrogen economy. Yes, we've come down, we've revised the targets. They are not as big, and the pace of development is not as rapid as some politicians probably hoped. But then again, for example, Germany has now made very important decisions on the core network. We need time for industry to move forward. We need regulatory certainty and stable policy. That will create the benefits that we can get from these investments. I have seen in the 25 years that I've been working in EU affairs quite a few times that we are moving for the kind of next big thing that is going to solve the societal issues, whether it is climate change or something else. And I think here it would be a great failure if we did that. I think we need to be very committed to the 2040 climate targets. They are important. It's going to be one heck of a political discussion in the European Parliament and also some member states, probably including the next German government, on what is the message to Europe. Are we sticking with minus 90% climate target or something else? We need fit for purpose regulation. It is important that we implement the Green Deal regulations as they were decided during the previous European Commission. It is important that we include all the time more and more industrial policy views. And to me, hydrogen economy, the beauty of it is really that it is not environmental, it is not climate, it is not economic, it's all of it. It combines all of the aspects that we have that are important for Europeans. I think also there's been a lot of calls from Germany and other countries, but especially mainly Germany, that we need to kind of revise the current rules that have been adopted because we need more investments, that we haven't seen sufficient investments in Germany. I'm worried about the fact that we haven't seen sufficient investments. I'm also worried that if we start changing the rules, then we will have a pause So this is it's a tricky issue. Yes, we need investments, but changing the names, the rules of the game, is also very complex and complicated because it takes time, and stability is quite important. And finally, one major issue obviously will be funding. The European Union is currently negotiating the next MFF, the multi-annual financial framework, where we will see then budget for infrastructure investments. We have seen reports by Draghi and Letta that are putting, huge figures for infrastructure investment needs. And that's going to be certainly quite a political discussion for this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's been my pleasure, and I hope we have some time for questions and discussion, if there are any. But I wanted to illustrate some of the aspects that are, first of all, important for Germany, important for Finland, why we can benefit, both of us and all of us, and what are the kind of regulatory needs for us to be able to make this business opportunity real in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco. Indeed, there is already 2 questions, so please feel free to add to these questions, dear people in the audience. But maybe to also get your opinion on a question that I think Jan already answered in the chat, but someone said there is an electrolyzer plant in Kristinestad, and will that replace the coal-fired power plants there? Or is there another reason why that location was chosen? Do you know anything about that you could share with us?
I've certainly never been to Kristinestad in my life, but I can nevertheless give a good guess for the answer. Actually, no, it is not replacing a coal-fired power plant. There is no coal. The only place that is using coal in Finland is actually Helsinki. Shame on Helsinki. But they are actually ending. Now I don't have the figure, but there's been 2 plants using coal in Helsinki. One of them has been already dismantled or stopped, and the other one is stopping very soon. So it's limited coal usage in Finland. Kristinestad, certainly I would make I'm rather certain doesn't use. So it's really why we have a lot of projects here on the west coast, and it is really the proximity to the renewable electricity. Now, most of the current wind farms, wind power plants are in that region. Thank you for the 28. I was rather certain that would be the right one, but I was too shy to say. Nevertheless, so the coastal line is for transport reasons. You have ports in all of these cities, and then you have access to the proximity to the electricity are some of the key drivers. It's also I must say that that area is very kind of positive for industry. There's a lot of Mittelstand industries over there, so there's a rush for good locations in that area currently.
Maybe for the Germans or the Europeans on the line, the point that Marco also made about Finland having green electricity and biogenic CO2 and a lot of green water. Another thing that Finland has for the wind power expansion plants is space. You need to imagine a country the size of Germany with a population of Hessen. So there is a lot of space, and there is Finland was one of the countries with the best wind power physical prerequisites. Actually, a lot of wind. The theoretical potential was 150 gigawatt onshore, 150 gigawatt offshore, at least, and there's a lot of space. There's some limits in eastern Finland right now because wind power is deteriorating the efficiency of radars, but that's also with the development of radar technology. It's also potentially changing over time.
I see. Okay, but Marco, and I think both of you shared the amount of gigawatts that are planned for wind farms. If all of those will be built, that's another question. But how much of this will be used in Finland, and how much is to be stored, trained, or yeah, produced to hydrogen, or exported maybe?
Nobody knows. It depends on the market economy. So we have seen actually now in the recent just months, I think one of the kind of key investors are the kind of Microsoft and Google, and their owners have invested or have announced investments. Microsoft already has significant investments in Finland in these networks that they need. And also Google has invested significantly in Finland. We've seen some proposals, not final investment decisions from them, but these are certainly potentially taking significant amounts of this potential electricity. And then we can, of course, there is some discussion that what is the kind of economic footprint of Google, Microsoft, and similar investments in the country. What are they kind of leaving behind? That's one area that is certainly will be growing. And then the question is that at what space there is no kind of there is no opportunity for kind of state control of this. So it is a private economy, whoever makes the PPAs for certain investments, the potential is there. And as you said, not all of that will be materializing, but it's such a large volume that it can be converted into a number of sectors. Go ahead, Dan.
Maybe, Mark, to add on that, there is another, for example, sector that is right now developing here in Finland is the steel industry. So we have a Norwegian Blaster Green Steel, which is planning in Inko in southwestern Finland, is planning a site for developing DRI, direct reduced iron, or Eisenschwemme in German. And they actually, in October last year, already published the first customer that they have with the declaration of interest, which is actually Germany-based Knauf Interfair. So there is going to be a ramp up where we see, of course, that as all countries developing or having green energy, Finland aims to get value add into the country and will get value add in the country. So that will be another dimension of German-Finnish trade in that sense. In Germany, the steel production is at places where we had ore and coal. Now we don't want to use coal anymore. There's no ore left. So the righteous question is, does it make sense to produce steel from A to Z in those locations? So that would be another part. And that will, of course, also influence on how much excess hydrogen there is then for exports. But all the scenarios turn into the direction that actually there is going to be excess because of that cost advantage that there is. Now, the key question then is, and this is, I mean, I always think the hydrogen economy is the mother of the chicken and egg problems, because we are pushing up production and demand at the same time. And if we succeed, then there will be also enough green energy available in Finland.
Yeah, interesting that there's an industry that's in Central Europe is, yeah, maybe not really clear on how to develop, that it is flourishing and ramping up in Finland. That's interesting. Hydrogen is also a puzzle piece for flexibility in the entire energy system. Is that something that is also an opportunity for Finland? Is that something that is being thought of, or is it rather let's take all of the energy and electricity, transfer it into hydrogen and then export the hydrogen? Is that what is the outlook, so to say?
Well, let me start answering that question maybe by looking at what we at Gas Grid are doing. And We want to create, first of all, of course, a national hydrogen transport infrastructure to enable the market to grow. Currently, we have seen a number of kind of attempts to look at greening, for example, the existing steel production by having a green electrolyzer and green hydrogen production next to it. But actually, the risk of this investment was too large without a broader network of industries. So we need more players. And this is also the reason. And of course, that brings also that flexibility side. And as Jan said, we have these zero electricity days, but then we have days when electricity is actually extremely expensive. So the kind of the opposites are very far from each other. And of course, this infrastructure will enable also help in this flexibility side. The second aspect that I'd like to bring up is obviously the European network. So we are at Gasgrid promoting the European projects because we know that that will actually enable us to have access to storage. We will struggle in Finland to have storage, but storage is possible in the Baltic countries or in Poland, Germany, in the salt caverns and others. We also will enable much broader markets. So as Finland is an island next to Russia with waterways on the other sides, of course, linked to to Sweden and Norway. But nevertheless, in many ways, we are an island. And this collaboration and the pipeline infrastructure, though there are certain challenges currently with it, and we recognize that fully, will enable a much different type of market. And at the end of the day, the large demand volumes, again, are definitely in Central European markets, and that is why we are working on these infrastructure projects.
I see. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There's another question on, speaking of grids, they are asking about grid connectors. And now I'm relying that your idea of the Finnish geography is better than mine because they're asking about the Suwałki area. I hope that is pronounced correctly. And
The
if that
Suwałki
area is
corridor, which is
a good area.
The Baltics, yeah.
Yeah. If that is a good area for a grid connector.
That's probably slightly outside my core expertise. And so I will leave to the experts to define what is the most optimal routes. There's a lot of discussion, obviously, currently on our infrastructure issues, on how to secure safety of our critical infrastructure. And there's a lot of environmental issues related to this as well, and with different locations. So we're, of course, with our partners working on those, but I don't have a direct answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, the Suwałki corridor is part of the EU, right now, and we are facing right now rough weathers, but this is plans for 2030, 32, and even further out. I think nobody knows what the geopolitical situation will be at that time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Marco, you shared about on the 3 different corridors that you've thought of and that are planned. Is there any sort of timeline on these? So is there a priority to start somewhere, or are all the 3 of them start at the same time?
Well, in reality, they will not start at the same time. We are progressing them all with teams working on them at the same time. We have applied for CEF funding from the European Commission for all these 3 projects. We should be hearing about it in about 4 weeks' time, the latest. So there's a lot of different milestones. So I'm not going to go ahead and say that this project is going to be a certain date and this the other. We are progressing them forward, and then depending on financing issues, any other issues that are kind of related to their management. So taking them further step by step.
That sounds like a good plan. So fingers crossed for in 4 weeks' time for the next step. Maybe as a closing question, what are your next steps with the hydrogen cluster, with hydrogen projects? What would you like to see in the next, I don't know, 6 months?
Well, we certainly will see, hopefully, a number of investments. I don't think we're going to see a huge amount of them, but slowly progressing, moving forward. I think we will have in 6 months, within the next 6 months, we will have some clarity on where the new European Commission is actually highlighting the issues, what are the most important. And they will also issue an important document, which is a delegated act on low carbon hydrogen, which is actually quite important, paving the way for investment. So I think we will be progressing. We will see this discussion on reduced ambition, but it's fine. There's still enough cake for all of us.
Maybe from our side, being Chamber of Commerce, our main task is to bring companies together to do business. So we are looking at an increased interest from the German side, and also see some German companies here, off-takers also in the audience, getting more contacts from the German side. We are just a phone call away, and then we can connect you with all of the major projects that are looking for investors or declarations of intent for getting off-take agreements in place gradually.